Hey guys, it's Carissa and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to talk about all the books that I read in the month of January. Now, January was a great start to the reading year. I really enjoyed most of what I read, and I read a little bit more than I normally do. So that's good. I had a great month in terms of quality and quantity. The total number of books that I read this month was 6. 2 of those are graphic novels, so they are shorter and have a lot less words, but still, it's more than I normally do. The ratings this month, it turned out that 2 books that I read were 2 stars, so not so great, but the other books I read, 3 of them were 4 stars, and 1 of them was a 5-star read. So it was a really good reading month. All right, let's go ahead and get into the books that I read. The first book that I read in the month of January is Spinning Silver by Naomi Novik. I gave this book 4 stars. I really enjoyed it. I will just read a short summary that I got from Goodreads. I'm not great at summarizing, so Goodreads helps me out. It says, Miriam is the daughter and granddaughter of moneylenders, but her father's inability to collect his debts has left his family on the edge of poverty. Until Miriam takes matters into her own hands, hardening her heart, the young woman sets out to claim what is owed and soon gains a reputation for being able to turn silver into gold. When an ill-advised boast draws the attention of the king of the Starik, grim fey creatures who seem more ice than flesh, Miriam's fate and that of 2 kingdoms will be forever altered. Now, this is a Rumpelstiltskin retelling, so it does have that really good fairy tale feel. You don't necessarily know what all the magic is in the book. You don't know all the rules, you don't know the grand big world, and for fairy tales, that's okay. The thing I loved about this book is I loved the atmosphere. It felt very cold, very wintry, very icy. I literally had to cover up with a blanket while reading this book because it made me cold, just the way the author described everything. And I think that's fantastic. I really enjoyed that aspect of it, especially since it is January, it is a wintry month. The odd thing is, usually it's about 15 to 30 degrees where I am in January, but this year it's anywhere from like 35 to 50 degrees, and so I'm kind of missing out on the cold, and this book gave me exactly what I was looking for. This book does have multiple perspectives. Most of the perspectives come from the main character, Miriam, who's the moneylender's daughter. Then there's another character who is a poor farm girl, and then another character who lives a totally different life, and her job is to marry up in her family so that they can have more wealth and notoriety. The only thing I didn't like about this is, with it being told in multiple perspectives, all 3 characters are women of the same age and they have a very similar voice, so it was very hard to tell who was who until you got like a paragraph in and realized where they were in the story. So that was a little bit hard. These 3 storylines do interconnect, and I love that part of it. I think the plot is amazing. I really like how everything ties together. I think it was done really well. I just wish that the characters were a little bit more different so we could tell who's who. I did give this book 4 stars. I really enjoyed reading it. It is a retelling, but it is not a Disney retelling, so it is a little bit darker. It has a lot more darker themes and motives than any Disney story does. That is how the old fairy tales really are, and I really enjoyed that aspect of it as well. Overall, I really liked this book, and it was fun to read it in the middle of winter. All right, the next 2 books that I read in the month of January are White Sand, volumes 2 and 3, written by Brandon Sanderson. Now, these are graphic novels. Brandon Sanderson wrote an entire story, an entire book, and then his words got cut up, chopped up, and put into this graphic novel, into this other form, and I honestly don't think that it worked. The story is about this person who is a sand master, and sand mastery is the kind of magic system. In the very first book, the first thing that happens is almost all the sand masters are wiped out, and our main character Kenton thinks he's the only one left. I really like Brandon Sanderson. He is my favorite author, but I will say I do not like graphic novels. I only gave these 2 stars. Part of that is graphic novels just aren't for me. I don't read comics, I don't read manga, I don't read graphic novels, so it's a little bit harder for me to get into it in the first place. But also, I can appreciate a graphic novel or books of different mediums, but this book just felt like it was lacking a lot. I didn't feel like it played to Brandon Sanderson's strengths at all. I love his characters. I love the way we get to get inside their heads and really know them. And I love knowing all the little intricate details of all the magic systems and the world building and everything. And in a graphic novel, you can't put that into words. You have to use the pictures. I didn't feel that this worked well for him, for Brandon Sanderson. The characters were lacking in depth and their dialogue just was really weird and really choppy. And I don't necessarily like the art styles either. Oddly enough, I think there are 3 different artists that worked on this, all separately, not together. I'm not sure exactly what happened, but I think like the first one was created by one artist, and then the second one they had a new artist, and then for the third one they had to get another artist. And so it's not really like super jarring, but I can't say that all of the art is super cohesive either. And that's just kind of unfortunate, I guess. The plot was good. Like everything else, it felt a little lacking, and I wanted more information. I needed more than what I got. As much as I hate to say it, I really didn't enjoy it. I read it only because it is part of the Grand Cosmere that Brandon Sanderson has written, this whole universe that combines different series he's written all together. So I felt like I needed to read it. Unfortunately, I just did not enjoy it. The 4th book that I read in the month of January is called Goodbye Things, the new Japanese minimalism, written by Fumio Sasaki. Now, I gave this book 3.5 to 4 stars, somewhere in that range. I really enjoy minimalist books and cleaning books. I love listening to them while I clean. It is just so motivating to me to listen to these kind of books. I can't say that this book taught me anything new or anything that I didn't know about minimalism. It really didn't. But what it did do is it made me think about it in a different light. So instead of focusing on minimalism to help with cleaning and organizing, this author focused on minimalism to help better his life. And I thought that was really neat. I really enjoyed listening to his story, how as he started getting rid of things, as he started to become more and more of a minimalist, how his life changed for the better. And like I said, it's just motivating. It's fun to listen to. There is one thing that really, really kind of just annoyed me and bothered me really bad, is he mentioned Steve Jobs and Apple products in every single chapter multiple times. Now, I'm pretty sure the book was not sponsored, but it definitely feels like it was because he just mentions them so much. I think he idolizes Steve Jobs, and so that just got to me a little bit. Mentioning him once or twice is great. It's totally fine, and I want to know where his inspiration came from, but it was way too much. Overall, I really did enjoy the book. It did help me clean a little bit. My house got a little bit cleaner, and I learned a new story. So this is a good book if you would like to listen to it and have just a different perspective on minimalism. All right, the 5th book that I read in the month of January is The House in the Cerulean Sea, written by T.J. Klune. Now, I gave this book 4 stars. Originally, I gave it 5 stars, but after a couple of weeks of thinking about it, I went back and put it down to 4 stars, and I will explain that a little bit later. I'll just read a little snippet of what it is about from Goodreads. It says, Linus Baker leads a quiet, solitary life. At 40, he lives in a tiny house with a devious cat and his old records. As a caseworker at the department in charge of magical youth, he spends his days overseeing the well-being of children in government-sanctioned orphanages. When Linus is unexpectedly summoned by extremely upper management, he's given a curious and highly classified assignment: travel to Marseille Island orphanage, where 6 dangerous children reside. Linus must set aside his fears and determine whether or not they're likely to bring about the end of days. Now, this book is so heartwarming and so fun. It's a little confusing initially when you look at it. It looks like it is a middle grade book. It is kind of written like a middle grade book, but it is actually written for adults. And I think that's the main reason that I moved it down from 5 stars to 4 stars. I thoroughly enjoyed the book. I loved reading it. It left me with a really good feeling, but it just felt like it was lacking that extra oomph to put it over into like a 5 star compared to a 4 star read. I really loved the characters. I loved the children in the book. They had some really cute, quirky personalities, and I just loved that about them. I loved the main character, Linus, the head of the orphanage, Arthur. It just was a really good dynamic, and I really felt like I got to know the characters, and I always loved that. I am a character reader, so it helps a lot to get to know them. The book is just a real feel-good story. The book is written kind of like a middle grade. It is a lot easier to read. It's pretty simple writing. It is fairly predictable, has a fairly predictable plot, and nothing really wowed me about it, but it did just leave me with a really good, warm feeling, and I think we need that a little bit more. Well, I need that a little bit more in my life, and so it was fun to read about. This book is LGBT positive, and a lot of times when I read books that have LGBT characters, sometimes I feel like it is forced, or the characters are just there to show representation, and I don't like that. You can always tell when it's written that way, but this book, it felt very natural. The characters were really natural. I want to say I didn't notice, like it was normal, and I really enjoyed that. I really loved the way everything just came together and all the characters were. It was a really good book, and I highly recommend it if that's something that you're interested in. All right, the 6th and final book that I read in the month of January is The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, written by V.E. Schwab. Now, I gave this book 5 stars. It was a great way to end the month, a great way to like jump into February ready to go. I'm just gonna read a quick synopsis. It says, "A life no one will remember, a story you will never forget. France, 1714. In a moment of desperation, a young woman makes a Faustian bargain to live forever, and is cursed to be forgotten by everyone she meets. Thus begins the extraordinary life of Addie LaRue, and a dazzling adventure that will play out across centuries and continents, across history and art, as a young woman learns how far she will go to leave her mark on the world." I really just enjoyed reading this story. It is a slower story. It is a very character-driven story. I feel like the plot doesn't really even start until halfway through the book, and that was okay with me. The writing is a little bit more flowery than I normally like, but since the main character is French, I felt like it just added more depth to her character, and so instead of not really liking the writing, I actually really loved the writing because it helped bring out the character of Addie LaRue. And really that is where this book shines, is the characters. I really loved getting to know Addie LaRue and all of her struggles and everything that she was thinking. It's a really good book, and I really enjoyed it, and it was really fascinating just to read. I really loved taking my time with this book and kind of reading it slowly so I could understand just the characters and just let it happen. I just really enjoyed all the characters. The plot, like I said, starts halfway through, and it does have like, you know, a beginning, middle, and end. It does have a full plot, a full arc, but honestly, I don't even care about that. I just cared about the characters, and it was really fun getting to know them. I really enjoyed this story. This book is also LGBT positive, and I also felt like this wasn't forced. It was just natural, and it's just really good to see good representation that way. This book is a little bit darker. She makes a deal with kind of the gods after dark, the demon god, the devil god, whatever you want to say, however you want to say it. And so it is just a little bit darker, but I like that every now and then. After going from The House in the Cerulean Sea, that was so light, so happy, just so heartwarming and wonderful, and then jumping into Addie LaRue, it was like, I needed that change. I needed it to be different, and it was, and I really enjoyed it. I do highly recommend this book. It won't be for everybody. There are some adult scenes in it, but it is adult fantasy, so all right. So that is all I read in the month of January. Thank you so much for listening to me and enjoying my video. I will see you guys next time. Bye.